Appreciate you for taking the time out to join in today. Looking forward to this conversation that we have. Inevitably, when you are buying an apartment building, it's one of the most challenging parts is that first deal, right? As you looking to get that first deal done, it's like, how does that happen? There's a ton of emotion going on. It's one of the most challenging things that you can do. However, it's also one of the most rewarding things, because it's not one of those things. This is not a flipping business. It's not like you go out and you turn a house in 30 days or something like that, right? It's going to take you a while to warming up. And so today we're going to be talking to someone who has made that journey and is going to be sharing with you her expertise and what she's learned. So I'm excited to have that conversation today. We got a guest speaker coming in. So sometimes we'll have guests, sometimes it'll be me providing the content. But all in all, it is for the upliftment of this community, right? What we're doing here and being able to give you valuable information that you can go take and implement in your business right away so that you are buying apartments. For those of you who are new, my name is Jason Stubblefield. I've been in the apartment investing business since 2015. We grew the portfolio a little over 1,000 units. We sold some stuff off, and I'm actively buying right now. So I do these sort of live streams part-time, right? It's not like a guru or anything. I'm actually active in the business. And so with that, I think that there's a lot of information I could just take live data and sort of share it with you. So for right now, what I'm going to do, and I'm down to one monitor, so just bear with me while I try to make this happen. But sharing my screen, and if you can see my screen now, let me get a thumbs up, a head nod. All right, cool. So SNS Capital Partners, that's like Sam, Nancy, Sam Capital Partners. I don't know if y'all are seeing this thing at the top or not. Maybe I'll move that out the way in case you were. But anyways, Sam, Nancy, Sam CapitalPartners.com. That's my website. If you go to that website, you'll be able to see some of the projects that we've done, some of the investor testimonials, and you'll find out a little bit about our company is all about. Also, if you're looking for investment opportunities, if you come over to the Invest tab, right? Click on Invest, you join our community. We'll send you an email that'll put you onto a list, and that way you can join our investor community. So we've got a pretty exciting deal that is live right now. If you have not heard about that deal, it's because you haven't invested. And so there are people who, well, it's not because you haven't invested, it's because you haven't signed up on our form to hear about our deals, right? And so if you're interested in hearing about those deals, learning more about what we're doing or passive investing opportunities, encourage you just to complete that brief form, and that'll put you into our world. So, all right, so I'll stop the share right there, and we'll go ahead and get into it. So we got a lot to cover today in just a little bit of time, but our speaker from today is Angel Williams, and Angel, I mean, I've known Angel for some years now. We've been a part of some high level coaching together. We've been a part of a mastermind. Really been able to see her excel and grow. And so she also runs a community called the Academy Presents, and they put on a ton of content. Angel knows just about everybody in the business, right? So she is definitely great communicator and someone who's a great connector with knowing other people. She's also a mom, and she's also made real estate her full-time career now. So today she's going to be talking about that transition and about getting that first deal across the finish line. So Angel, don't let me tie everything up. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to our group today.
Absolutely. So I am Angel Williams. I'm the face of our educational community. It is the Real Estate Investing Rocks community. So it's the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks. We've got a podcast, and we do we do a weekly Marvelous Mondays meetup. It's a virtual meetup. It's a lot of fun. It's every Monday at noon Eastern. We're having our 6th virtual summit starting this Thursday. We've got 42 speakers that have pre-recorded content. We've got a bunch of live stuff going on. We've got panels and master classes and roundtables, and it's insane. And it's really cool. If you want to go, I can get the information out to you. But it's just a lot of fun, and just doing real estate is a lot of fun. I came from teaching, and so sharing information is part of like my teacher heart. And so that's what I want to do.
Nah, awesome. I appreciate that. And I would encourage everybody, if you want to hear from some high level people who are doing a lot, you want to attend Angel's event that's coming up here. She's done, how many has it been, Angel, that you've done?
This is our sixth one.
Wow, number 6. Okay, right. So I was around at the very beginning, like number 1, and it's grown and gotten bigger each time. Cool. So how are we doing it today? Are you going to have a presentation for us? Is it going to be Q&A? Sort of like.
We can just chat.
Got it. Okay, perfect. No, I love that. So, just for everybody who's on, right, walk us up through what it was like for you getting started and getting into your first deal.
Okay. So we got into the space 2017, 2018. And that was, we went to an event in Grapevine. It was a Memphis Invest. I don't believe Memphis Invest is around under that name anymore, but it was an event in Grapevine and Joe Fairless was one of the speakers. And we talked to Joe at that point in time. Joe had like 58 million in assets under management. So, go forward 5 years, he's at like 2.5 billion now in assets under management. And those aren't deals with his students. That's his stuff. So that's huge and massive. And why, why he took time to talk to us, I'll never really know, because I think at that point in time we had like 1 or 2 single families. So that kind of gives you an idea into how we got started. We bought our first house in 2003. I was 26. Jason was 24. He was finishing up his doctorate. And then he got his first job in 2007 and we moved. And I don't remember us ever even discussing whether or not that first house would become our first rental. It just did. We just started looking for somebody started to make readies. And we were like, hey, what do you think we should do to this room? Oh, we should probably just paint this room. Oh, yeah, we're going to take care of this bathtub. In the years that we've lived here, we've never been able to use this bathtub. And this was the funny one, is we were homebrewers. So really that bathtub in our bedroom that didn't work was just full of beer bottles. Because we saved all our beer bottles because we would sanitize them and then reuse them for the next time that we brewed a batch of beer. So it was like our beer bottle holder. It was really gross. But I mean, that became our first house in 2007. It became our first rental in 2007. And we got some more singles. And then we just really started thinking. We had our son, he has special needs and his medical costs are pretty insane. And so Jason started learning about multifamily, and his dad had done residential multifamily and was incredibly successful with it. But, I think there's a lot of people out there that think the only people buying apartments are these big institutions. And that's simply not the case. When I think about the property that we bought, it's 15 minutes from our house, but it was 34 investors total to make a $5 million purchase. It's not.
Was that your first syndication deal? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and hop into that. Right. So you started with the single families, you had the beer bottle,
no, it's crazy, right?
Project that was going all right. And then walk us through sort of what happened between those single family or that single family and multifamily conversion and what got you started in that.
All right. So like I said, my son had some pretty insane medical bills, and Jason and I just kind of realized that, well, first off, as a special needs parent, there's kind of 2 ways you can go. You can decide to really live in poverty and get your state services, or you can go the other direction and just cover it. We crunched the numbers and we were saving about, I don't know, $45,000-ish, basically living in poverty so that Nancy could get free state services and federal services. And I mean, I have a master's degree. I wasn't able to really do anything with it. I was teaching college. That was all I was doing. And as an adjunct instructor, we don't get paid a whole bunch. So I was making like just under $8,000 a year as a college instructor in economics. And once we crunched the numbers, I was like, Jason, I can make way more money than $45,000. And so we decided that I would go back to school, and I could make more than that teaching. So I went back to teaching full time, and we started figuring out how we were going to start investing in multifamily. And in 2018, I believe, we got into 4 deals as passive investors so that we could kind of learn and see what was going on. But like my first word of advice there is, before you go active, do passive investing, but don't be embarrassed to ask those operators questions, ask for referrals, like do whatever it takes to be comfortable with it. And don't be embarrassed, because you look ignorant when you don't ask the questions. I thought we were going to look like beginners for asking the questions. And so we just basically used my gut, not my intuition, on who would be good to go with.
No, I like that, right? Strongly encourage that asking those are not like my wife is a writer, right? And so she likes, I always tease her because she likes whipping out these words on me and using it in common language. Like I'm just supposed to know what that means. And I'm always like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that word means. And I think that it is something that whenever you're talking with someone else, especially when it comes to apartment investing and they're throwing out a term, right? The way that you gain knowledge is asking them about that. And so, Angel, it seems like you were very strategic about taking a passive route into going active, right? And so, can you talk about why you chose that and how that looked for you?
So I don't like to invest in anything I don't understand. And honestly, I didn't come from a super wealthy family. My family, my grandparents raised me, and they did some residential investing. They had a little trailer park, they had a little quad, they had some singles. So I saw that, but I didn't really understand how you could invest in anything. I don't think they ever invested in stocks or anything. I didn't know anything about that. Even in college, you don't really talk about those things. I mean, maybe you talk about stocks and stuff, but maybe I didn't make an A in the class.
I'll take a trailer park over stock any day.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I didn't understand multifamily. And my husband is the kind of person that can read and learn from reading. I can't. I just can't. I learn from seeing it, hearing it, doing it, being in it. And so that was one of the reasons why we chose to be on the passive side, was so that we could be in it and see it and hear it and just kind of understand it from that perspective. Now, the issue with that was we thought we were passive in our residential stuff because we had a property manager. But here's the deal. Like, if a roof has a leak on your single, your property manager is going to call you and say, hey, we got to fix this leak. Or, hey, there's something going on with the plumbing. Hey, your resident walked into their room and the floor was wet. Like, you're passive, but you're not really passive. So we get into multi, and it's like, we don't get any phone calls. We don't have to talk to anybody. The next thing we know, we're just getting a deposit in our checking account. And it's like, oh, well, so what is this? Like, what is this magic? And it's literal just mailbox money. You just get deposits. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to get involved, you can usually just call the sponsor team and say, hey, I want to know more about what's going on. Can I be a fly on the wall? Can I just learn from you? And they're usually going to say yes, unless they're shady, which I've been in a shady deal because, again, didn't ask any questions, just went with my gut, and my internal compass failed me on that deal. So.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Good nuggets there, right? So investing passively, you can reach out to the operator and say, all right, how can I learn something? What are you doing? Right. I know right now we currently have an investor who listens in, at least he was, right. He was strong for probably like at least a good 6-8 months in a deal of joining our property management calls, where he's hearing us discuss the opportunity, what's happening, leasing, eviction stuff like that. So you took that route and you were able to learn just knowledge to help you go into your first deal. And so talk about the groundwork a little bit that you had to accomplish, right? So now you're passive, but now you're looking to go active. So what is it that you have to know? How are you learning that? And then what steps did you take?
All right. So again, I'm not, my lane is talking to people, going to events, meeting people, taking my drinks. That is my lane. That's what I do. I build relationships. And I have been fortunate enough to build relationships with some people that we really kind of came up with. You know, Jason, you alluded to the fact that we've been in this for a bit, right? Yeah. And so I met some really strong players. And one of my really good friends is Sandia Shashadri. And if you don't know her, she's somebody you really want to know. If for no other reason than just to see what she's doing. So just for an example, like we're looking at a older property, has a chiller, and I'm like, okay, we need to get rid of the chiller and do splits. And they're like, why do you say that? I'm like, because that's what Sandia does. And Sandia is very good at her job. So I'm learning how to do these things from people that are really big in the space, right? And we've all kind of grown together. And so I really did learn how to do what we needed to do from the friends that I had. I'm going to put her name.
Oh, you saw that? Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, no. So that was really how I learned. Jason, we listened to some podcasts. Yes, we did go through Joe's book because that's part of what he asks you to do. But I didn't do all the stuff I was supposed to do because that's not how I learn. And honestly, all the things that we were told, like, don't call the broker until you built a relationship, like, or build a relationship with your broker. Don't just go into it haphazardly. I was at another meetup that said, don't go to a broker. If you got blue hair, make sure you look the part. So I don't know if you can tell, my hair is blue and purple. And I'm just like, so all of these things that you're really not supposed to do, I did. How did we get the first property? It was an SMS text blast. And I looked at my phone and I was like, hey, it's here in Wichita Falls. I think I'll give him a call. I had never really talked to a broker before that. And so I'm sitting on the phone with this guy. And number one, his headphones were around his neck. He didn't even know that his phone had picked up. So I'm like, hello. And I'm like yelling into the phone. And the guy finally picks up and I'm like, hey, we would love to tour the property. My husband has a W-2, but can you pencil us in at noon? And if I don't call you back, we'll be there. And then there was some other exchange. Like at one point, I'm like, so I'll talk to you forever because that's what I do. I talk a lot. So you're going to have to say, hey, Angel, I got to go. And so he let the conversation go about 2 more minutes. He's like, hey, Angel, I got to go. Like, okay. Because he didn't get that you're not going to hurt my feelings. I know I talk nonstop. And you literally have to say, hey, Angel, girl, I love you, but I got to go. And I'll get it. I'm not going to be like, oh, do you not like me? I'm going to realize that I'm just running. So I get it. But that's what so when you hear all of these things about you can only approach brokers a certain way, you need to take them out for lunch or go meet them for this or meet them for that. It doesn't have to be that way. Our broker took us out for supper one night. We were coming into DFW and I'm like, hey, John, we're coming into town. And he was like, hey, I'm over here at this car warehouse. It's called whatever in DFW. Like, why don't you meet me here? So we met him there. We had drinks. We had burgers. He showed us around the facilities because his car was there. He had an i8 BMW and he had another car and he's like showing us around. Again, that's not how it usually goes. But just because you do it different doesn't mean you're doing it wrong.
Definitely right. You leverage a personal relationship with the broker. You're able to get on somebody's email list or text message blast, right? So you got that. You had a phone call. And were you actively underwriting like multiple deals a week at this point?
No. I don't underwrite at all. Jason underwrites. That's my husband.
Yeah. So good. I'm glad you brought that up, right? So you're a team, right? You got your husband, he does the underwriting, he's the numbers guy, and you take on the relationship building and mainly relationships, right? What you're talking about with the broker here. So okay, great. And so was Jason underwriting a lot of deals at this point, or was it just one of the first ones that you got?
Okay, so remember, like, this is summer of 21. So we're still in the COVID stuff, right? Of course, I'm in Texas. So by summer of 21, we hadn't worn masks for a year. So a little bit different in Texas than other places. But so anyway, so I was meeting a bazillion people like this virtually. And so I was probably still going to 2 virtual meetings every day, sometimes 3. And basically what I would do is I would pimp Jason out at these meetings. And I'd be like, hey, you need somebody to check out your underwriting? Because we didn't have a lot of deal flow. We weren't looking at a bunch of deals. So I would pimp him out to underwrite other people's deals and check other people's numbers. And so that's what he was doing. And he basically found mistakes in all of these different people's spreadsheets that a lot of you probably buy and use. And Jason found all the mistakes in them. And he was like, man, I like this. I don't like this. I like this. This part's broken. He even found a mistake in our coach's underwriting stuff. And so he sent it to Theo and he was like, hey, Theo, you might want to look at reworking this part here.
Right. And so I know that with Jason, right? He's great at underwriting, but do you know if he was underwriting a lot of deals or not, or was he just sort of?
So everybody was sending him the deals, the people from the meetings. And I was like, look, if you send it to him, you're going to have to say in the subject line, I am Angel's friend. and then put your deal in there, and he'll look at it for you. Because if you didn't send it to him and he was charging you, he didn't charge Fiverr prices, friends. You know, he had his PhD in chemical engineering when he was 26. He's kind of a
and
numbers
so
person.
with this deal, right? Did he
Mhm.
find it because somebody else sent it to him to
Now, I
underwrite?
found it because we got the SMS blast.
Gotcha. Okay, you found it, you send it to him, he underwrites it. And then how does the offer process look like for you?
Okay,
Because this is
so
the first one, right? You
Yeah.
haven't done the deal, right? You haven't bought it, right? So walk us through that.
okay, so prior to this one, we had put in an LOI, but it was a mom and pop, and they didn't really understand the LOI process at all. They were like, "You can't just give us this. We also have to have a contract and the earnest money." We were like, "No, that's not actually how it works." Uh, but that was the first LOI we'd ever put in. And so we had a team, and we put in an LOI on. There were two properties by the same seller, and so we put an LOI in on Thousand Mary, and I wanted to put one in for Shepherd's Edge too, which was the bigger property. And the guys we were with were like, "No, no, no." And then we're going back and forth. And I might have gotten a little abrasive in a text. Jason's like, "Why are you being mean?" I'm like, why aren't we just putting in the LOI on both? And they were a little more conservative than I was. And so we emailed Joe and we're like, "Hey, I don't think this team is going to work out." And Joe was like, "Well, number one, congratulations for figuring this out now before you've signed anything and gotten your LOI accepted." So I went back to the team that we had and I emailed them and I said, "Hey, number one, Joe says, serious congratulations to us for figuring this out now, but I don't think we're going to work." Call for offers had already gone through. So what I did was I called the broker and I was like, "Hey, do you think we can slide in an LOI on our own?" And he was like, "I guess so." I was like, "Can I go ahead and slide one in for Shepherd's Edge too? I know that we didn't do that before, but we'd really like to put in LOIs on both." And they let us put in LOIs on both.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, Ash. So LOI, letter of intent. And so what that is basically if you remember in grade school, maybe you did this, maybe not, but you like, yeah, maybe you like the girl or something. You're like, "Hey, I like you. Do you like me?" Right. That's
Showcase
what
them
the
now.
LOI is, right? It's what you do in commercial real estate. So before you come with a 50-page purchase and sale agreement, you just send over a really basic template, say, "I'll buy your project or your property at X amount of dollars. I'll close it in 60 days and whatever." And they usually give a response based off of that. So, so yeah, thanks for asking that and sort of clearing things up. So Angel, you've submitted the offer, right? And you cut out the excess fat of the team that wasn't going to work. And now you're just doing it by yourself. So did you have everything that you need? Key
No,
punch.
not at all.
Okay.
We didn't know what we needed. We'd never done it before.
Okay. So what did you find out that you did need, and then how did you come up with those pieces?
So the LOI was accepted. Again, part of this was really because we had built a pretty strong relationship with the broker. Because when we were at the walkthrough, the broker was like, there was a senior broker and a junior broker on the deal. And the senior broker was like, "Wow, whose Jeep is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's mine." He's like, "Do you like to get dirty?" And I was like, "We like to off-road." Turned out he did too. So on another weekend, we all went out off-roading together also. So again, very non-traditional. It was 72 units. Very non-traditional method for getting a deal done. But we basically built a friendship with the senior broker. And I think that he was probably the major person that was really fighting for us to get the deal. So we had put the LOI in, we did our tour. And then it came time, we made best and final, and it came time for the interviews. And at the very end of the interview, I don't know what it was, but again, I do a lot from my intuition and my inner compass. And so probably in the last 2 minutes or something, I talked about, "Hey, I know we're new and I know we've never done this before, but our main goal at some point is to have a foundation created for people with rare diseases." Because when our son was diagnosed, there were 742 cases in the world with what he had. And there was nothing scarier than those 2-3 weeks that all I could do was research it because there were no answers. And so we want to have a foundation that helps other families that are affected by rare diseases in that period of time where there are no answers. And it's scary and it's what if. And so I shared that with him, and it was like, that was that turn. And the next thing I know is we were being told that we had been awarded the deal.
Okay. And so this is during the best and final round, right? Is that when this conversation happens?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. So for those who are new, right, you submit an LOI, and usually you're not the only person who's done that. And so what'll happen is sellers will they'll look at all the LOIs that come in and they'll say which one are we going to choose to work with, right? Because there's multiple bids. And so what Angel's sharing here is her relationship with the broker and how she was able to get actually be a little bit vulnerable. And I think that's really powerful as a newer investor, right? When you talk to these brokers, you don't have to show up and pretend that you know everything, right? If you'll just ask the right questions and tell them what you like and do, what you want to do, sometimes they'll like you and they'll actually open up and build a relationship that's strong enough, and that can get you awarded deals. And so it seems like that's what happened with Angel here. So now you've got the deal under contract, but you're new, you don't have all your team set up, and this is a syndication deal, correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then what's the size of the deal
It was 72 units, or it is 72 units.
and purchase price?
5 million.
$5 million deal, 72 units. So how much did you have to raise for that deal?
1.8, 1.9.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so you're raising $1.8 million on this deal. All right, so what happens?
Okay. So we get this deal and Jason and I are like, oh, SHIT. It's just us and we just got this $5 million deal. What are we going to do? So we built a second team.
Okay.
All newbies except for my friend that was going to be the sponsor of the deal. And things were going fine. We got our due diligence stuff done. It was done amazingly fast. Our friend Kay Trevor was on the deal with us. And if you're looking for somebody that can do some due diligence or give you some advice on due diligence and your asset management stuff, man, he is the guy. He just helped do it. And I was lucky enough. Well, we've been investing in Wichita Falls 15 years residential. So we knew a ton of people. And so if we couldn't get this guy to show up, we knew who to move to for the next. And we chose to keep the management agency. And so we were able to use all of the current property management agencies' contacts for plumbers, electricians, all of those people that could come out and look at stuff. And we were able to just stack up all of those things in about, I want to say we took care of it in about 5 days. And honestly, we really had no other choice because Jason and I had also put $100,000 on the deal that went hard day one. So
okay, really, let's not look over that, right? So all right, $5 million, right? And so you did roughly 2%. And that's what happens in a competitive market, right? So for those that don't know, and this is why being educated and having you're surrounding yourself with people that are doing deals, most transactions that are happening in today's market, you have to be able to go hard. What is going hard? Going hard means that you say to that owner that you're talking to in the LOI, I'm going to be able to give you X amount of dollars, which single family is usually like a earnest money deposit, but you're not going to get it back. That's what that's what you call going hard. I'm so confident that I'm going to buy this deal that I'm going to give you. This is what Angel says. I'm going to give you $100,000, and if I don't buy it, you can keep my $100,000. And so a lot of people, newer investors, they want to go and buy apartment complexes, but how do you have the confidence to do that? How do you have the confidence to put $100,000 up and say, if I don't buy it, I'll walk away and you can keep that without having a team behind you, right? And in order to be able to make that leap. So you did it. I'm assuming that you had a team. I know some of the groups that you belong to. So you were surrounding yourself with people that could help you feel that confident in the deal. I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But we didn't have a team then. When we put that 100,000 up, we didn't have anybody. But we were like, hey, this is what people are doing. And it was our first deal. We didn't have any experience and we didn't think we would be taken seriously if we put 1% down.
Gotcha.
So that was why we did it the way we did it. There was methods to the madness. And then we put that second team together and things were going great, but we couldn't get a loan product. And so on your first deal, second deal, whatever it is, doesn't matter what deal it is. Just like you need a really solid lender in your corner when you're buying residential, you need a really solid lender in your corner when you're buying commercial also.
Absolutely. And so for those that are new, I want to make sure that we give them parts of this team, right? So you mentioned a sponsor, and a sponsor is somebody who can sign on the loan and they have net worth and liquidity, right? Basically somebody who's got money, who's bought apartments before, that can go to a bank and be able to get approved for a loan. You had that piece. You also mentioned that the property management company was already there. They're managing the property, and you kept them as a piece. And then you also talked about due diligence. So now you're talking about lender. Are there any other pieces that you put together outside of those that I just listed?
Insurance, because you want to make sure that you know what the insurance is so that you get it underwritten. Oh my gosh, underwritten.
I'm
solidly.
with you. Yeah.
But I think, your lawyer. You want to make sure you have your lawyer. You've done your retainers or you've done any of those things you have to do to make sure you got your lawyer there. And there's very specific SEC lawyers, like not just any lawyer can do your SEC stuff.
Yeah. So you're a security attorney. All right. So you had trouble getting a loan. How did you overcome that?
So this was where things got crazy, right? The deal was tough. And the girl that was our sponsor said, hey, things shouldn't be this tough. We're on the phone like every other day with Joe. And I'm like, this is sucking, Joe. I don't know what we're doing. He's like, what do you, first off, he's talking to Jason because I can't even talk because I'm really upset. I don't even know what to tell him. And then Joe's like, hey, Angel, what's really going on? Because he knows me. He knows that like I'm a talker and I wasn't talking, right? And I was like, well, this is going on and this is going on. And I have to take care of this. And then he's like, no, you don't. Stop. It's like, don't worry about this. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about this. Worry about this. And then call me back when you have this taken care of. And the reason why I say this is because I don't remember all the things that I was saying because I was distraught. We were having problems with the team. I didn't think the team was going to make it. But Joe kept saying, look, I'm on the other side of this right now. I am the seller and the buyer's having the same problems you're having. This is normal. And so I went back to our team. It was the second team at that point. And I said, hey guys, look, I realize so-and-so has $100 million in assets under management. She knows what she's talking about. But let me tell you something. Our coach, who has billions in assets under management, is saying this is normal and that we just have to ride it out. And I want to say it was the next day or the next day that team dissolved. And so once again, it's me and Jason with a $5 million deal. We have 100,000 that has already gone hard and we're coming up on the first extension. So what an extension is you get to a point where like in your LOI, you say, hey, I can get this closed in say 60 days. Well, your 60 days are coming to an end. And generally you put extensions in your LOI, but you got to pay for them. And so it was $75,000 in extension. Well, we went ahead and ponied up with that 75 and we still didn't have a loan product. And one day Jason came home at lunch and he's like, I can't work. I can't think of anything except for the $100,000 that we're about to lose. Because I don't think we hadn't quite put the 75 down yet. We put it down like a couple days later. But he comes into our house, comes into the room. He's like, I'm so glad that you're just asleep still and you're not already drinking. Because I was at that point. Man, I spent a solid probably 6 weeks in there, just alcoholic state, right? It was bad. It was so bad. And so he sat down and I could grab the spiral. I literally, in my little spiral, that's where I kept up with all my investors and everything. My little yellow spiral. He's like, let's make a list of names. And so we made a list of 35 people that we felt had the financial wherewithal. So like the net worth, the liquidity, the experience to help us get back on track. And I was like, you know what? We're only going to have to get through five people. We'll go through 5. It'll be great. We'll be done. No. 5 calls. We got a lot of sorry, can't help you. Keeps, what was it? Dialing and smiling. That was my ultimate favorite. It's not really my favorite. It was like a knife to the gut with a twist. But keep smiling and dialing. Oh, thank you. But it was just like, man, is this really happening? And then we made it through the next 10. Nothing. Call 15 didn't answer. Call 16 did. And Agostino Pintus basically dropped everything that day and helped us get a loan product. And he helped us get back on track. And so I say that because you never know who you're going to make an impact on. And Agostino was the guy at Yona Weiss's meetup that said, you don't want to talk to a broker with blue hair. And when he said that, it was like the chat blew up and was like, I met a girl with purple hair at a Brad Sunmark event. I know that girl with purple hair. I told her she had hair the same color as my niece. And the funny thing is we're 2.5 hours from DFW. So I go to events in Dallas, Fort Worth all the time. And so I knew, I was like, oh my God, they're talking about me. And somebody said, well, it sounds like she made a pretty big impression on you, if you remember. And so then we go to breakout rooms, and who's in my first breakout room? Agostino. And he's like, well, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. And I'm like, I want to say I was the last one. He's like, and Angel, who are you? And I'm like, I'm the girl with the purple hair.
No, that's a great story. So what I want to do is sort of wrap it up to see how you got this thing closed, and maybe we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A afterwards. So you don't have your team, or you just like, you found, what was the name again?
Angelino? Mary? Or no?
Angelino, is that the name?
Oh, Agostino Pintus.
Agostino. Okay. Agostino Pintus. Right. That's the person who's going to come. Is that a loan officer?
No, he's another syndicator.
Okay. He's a syndicator, but he got you back on track. And so at this point, we haven't even talked about the capital raise. So you're probably, how far are you in the contract at this point? 60 days?
Oh, no. So we got it under contract in August, and this would be November.
Wow. Okay.
We were basically begging the buyer. We were like, we will get this thing closed. I swear to God, we'll get this thing closed. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I'm telling you, we will get this thing closed.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so you exercise your extension, you found someone to help you. And then how does the capital come in? Because you need $1.8 million now, right?
So we put together a third team.
Okay.
And I met a guy in maybe 2019. He used to be a teacher. He was a syndicator. And I'm in the middle of the night. I'm like, oh my God, I can't go back tomorrow. I don't want to go back to teaching. Our principal's horrible. She's a horrible person. He's like, Angel, you're going to be fine. You're going to make it. And his name was Frank Padalano. And I met him for the first time face-to-face at BEC 2020 in Keystone, where we saw you and Chris Coleman and all those guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first time I ever met Frank Padalano face-to-face. And so I called up Frank. I said, hey, Frank, I know you were going to help us. You were going to co-GP with us. Would you please just join our GP team? And he's like, yeah. So he joins it. Gail McCarthy joins it. My friend Matt Corderay joins it. And now we have a third team. And I don't know what Frank does. Maybe it's his middle school prowess. Maybe it's because I was a middle school teacher. I don't know. But we started competing to see who could bring in. A GP team is the general partners. They're the side that take care of the deal. They're the owner operators, the asset managers. They're the capital raisers. They take care of all the things that make the apartment complex work. And so, and mind you, the bank kept saying, how much have you raised? How much have you raised? We're like, oh yeah, 20%, 30%, 40%. We had raised $250,000 from Jason's family.
Okay. And so let's go to the end of this, right? So obviously you get it closed. Mm-hmm. And it turns out to be a success story. And here's the thing that I think everyone can take away, right? If you're willing to stick your neck out and sort of have connections, you figure it out. There's so many stories that are very similar to yours. The first one's hard. You got it under contract. Now you're putting all your effort and resources into getting it done. And then you finally have it accomplished, right? And so it ends up being worth it and it pays off. But you have to be willing to have enough confidence to stick your neck out and get started in the first place. You did that. You'd only had 250,000. So did the general partners, did they raise the bulk of the capital and you were only at 250, or were you able to raise more from your network?
So Jason and I ultimately wound up raising $1 million for that first deal.
Whoa. So you were at 250, right? And then you came in the clutch and you raised $1 million by the time it closed.
No. So GP, actually Frank, put in a large sum of money, of his own money, and we backfilled him. It took us about 8 weeks to raise $1 million, maybe 10.
Okay.
So
And so,
we closed on December 17th of 21, and we had backfilled him, which took us up to 1 million by February of 22.
okay. And then talk through that process. So before you'd only raise 250, and then you were able to raise, whatever the remaining amount, 750 grand in about 8 weeks. What was the difference in between those two time periods?
We got traction. It was a different kind of atmosphere on the team. And I don't know, it felt different. And it was playful too. It kind of became a game.
Were
'Cause
you
it
were
was
you
like,
calling the same people that you called before, or not? Now you calling like a whole different list of people?
it was pretty much the same people because I'm really bad about putting stuff down in a CRM. So I had about 150 people in my head. And so I had to take the time, number one, to put them all in a database, right? Which sucked. So don't keep them in your head, put them in a database, or you're going to spend a week pulling them from your head and putting them in a database. But there was about 147 people that I was calling. And I didn't change those 147 people. I think what changed is I was smiling on the phone. There was a lightness because I didn't have the fear that it wasn't going to get closed anymore. Because I could talk a big game,
Yeah,
but there was always that fear that it wasn't going to close.
yeah,
And so once that 13 was created and, Frank was playing around, he's like, I can do more than you. I can raise more than you. And I'm like, no, you can't. And it was more just everybody was working together and we were just trying to get this deal across the finish line. And
yeah,
it was just a new certainty. And man, people can hear it on the phone. They can hear if you're not smiling. They can hear if you're upset. One day I had 16 no's in a row. Why in the world I kept calling people? I don't know. I wasn't happy anymore. I was dejected. I was upset, and I know people could hear it. There was no possibility of yeses probably after the sixth no. I should have stopped. I should have gone outside, taken a walk. I should have done something, but I didn't.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
kept going.
That's amazing, Angel. So that story, I love how you put that all together. And there's so many gems in that with things you did, and just energy state, right? That's mainly what you're talking about, right? Once you had the pressure of it's going to close gone, like now you're bringing that more positive energy into your conversations, and you have the motivation to keep calling people, and you do that, and you have the money come in. So great with that. In our last few minutes here, I just want to open it up. We did have some questions in the chat. I want to run through those. I think we got the GP question done. It was a syndication. Angel's great at building relationships, and Ash, I'll sort of take that question on. When it comes to building relationships, you really just have to take every opportunity in order to do so. So what I do is that with everyone who joins these meetups, right, I send out a list of all the attendees. And what I did is actually when I was just getting started, I would reach out to the people that I had their contact information on. If I went to an event and I got business cards from somebody, right, I would actually call those people or email those people who I got the business card from. A lot of people, they go to events, they spend time and they never follow up, but those relationships go into your database, and that will be the very resources that you pull from when you're doing this. So it's not magical. It's no secret repository of people. It's just you're meeting a person here, you're meeting a broker there, and you're constantly putting yourself out and being open enough to accept new relationships in there. But great with that. Does anybody else have any other questions for Angel while she's still here sharing the story? And if you're on Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and just blurt it out or put it in the chat.
I would stack on to what you said too. Like with that first broker, I told him, I said, I don't know what I'm doing here. We've never done this before, but my friend Sandia told me I should say this to you. And I was just open and blunt. He's like, Angel, number one, I'm so glad that you're saying this to me. He's like, because we'll find out. And now I'm not going to be blindsided by it later.
When you said that you would find out, what was that? Oh, never mind. I've asked enough questions. Whoever that was, go ahead.
I think it was James.
Angel, where's your halo?
Hold on. So that means that he's seen me at another meetup.
There you go. Ash, do you get more returns in commercial real estate investing instead of in residential real estate investing? You want to take that in?
You get different returns. So in your residential stuff, you're going to be the one that owns everything. And so in my heart, I believe residential is a great store of value because you can get all your money out of it with some cash out refis and you basically have infinite returns in them, right? And so then you just cash out refi 'em when you want a big chunk of change to do something magical with. The difference with multifamily is every time there's a capital event, you get a big chunk of change. You don't got to cash out refi it. You don't got to do nothing. Just every so often, you just capital event happens, you get boom, $20,000, boom, $30,000. That's the big difference to me. It's those big chunks of change. And those are where the double ups happen. And I call a double up a 2x. Like, so if you're looking at a deal and it says it has a 2x multiplier, I call that a double up because what it's telling me is that in approximately 5 years, I'm going to double up whatever my investment originally was.
Yeah, and Angel, I just want to clarify that. So when you're talking about that, are you talking about investing passively in commercial versus, passive in residential? Okay, gotcha. So yes, that's understood. And so Sarah asked, how much do you have to put in for these syndication deals?
It depends. If one of the benefits of being accredited, which means you've got $1 million net worth, or you're making $200,000 a year as a single for the last 3 years and expect to do so for the next 3, or $300,000 if you're a couple with that same 3-year plus expectation. If you're accredited, you can go into like a 506B and say, hey, I don't count against your numbers, but I'm not comfortable putting in $50,000. Can I put in 25? Some will say yes, some will say no. But if they say yes and their minimum investment is 50, you can come in at 25. I did get a phone call one time that was like, hey, we've got 19,000 left to finish up this deal. Can y'all put in 19? So, but that's after having a relationship built up with that particular team. If you're not an accredited investor, you can still get in for under the minimum. You just have to ask. And don't be embarrassed to ask, because it's better to go ahead and get started. Make sure you vetted that team, but go ahead and just get started and see what it's like. But you're going to be limited to 506Bs if you're not accredited.
Yep. No, good information there. What's a capital event? It's basically, it's either going to be a sale or it's a refinance, something like that. That's what you call like a capital event that happens. And if you're investing passively, what happens is that the ownership team, they'll refinance it and you'll get a chunk of your initial investment back. You also continue to get returns, or they could sell it, and that's where you can get what Angel referred to as like those 2x multiples. Okay, and then Ash, I'd like to heartily thank Angel and everyone else for this truly motivating discussion. I would agree, Angel. Really appreciate you for what you've shared and the nuggets that we have here. And then Sarah's asking for the information on the event that you host.
I think that gets you there.
Yep, the Academy Presents, right? So for those who may be on Facebook and can't see that, it's theacademypresents.com. Just how it sounds, right? Theacademypresents.com, all one word. And
Jason could be a speaker. Just saying.
Oh, you're talking about me,
you, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, I may make an appearance there. Cool. And then Sarah asks, how do you meet syndicators? Angel, you're the great connector, share.
Just start going to events. You can use meetup.com and find events, or there are a bazillion virtual events that still happen. There is at least one virtual event every day at lunchtime. Today, there's an 11 a.m. or it's 11 a.m. Central. So a noon Eastern meetup that Dan Friedenberg puts on. It's called like the full-time investors only, I think. Wednesday is George Roberts. He does a 12 Eastern meetup. It's called like the CRE Power Hour, maybe. Emma Powell started one on Thursdays at, I think it's actually at noon or 1 p.m. Eastern. And then Brian Briscoe has the TGIF meetup every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And those are all noon ones. And then there's more that happen maybe an hour before, an hour after. And there's a whole lot more in the evenings. And those are all virtual. So that's a really good way to meet people. Or if you're close to like a major, like a big MSA, those are going to have a ton of meetups as well. And man, you just go. Don't be afraid to go. And
Yeah.
if you are an introvert, we're going to do a masterclass, my husband and I, on how to network as an introvert, because he's a huge introvert. I thought it was because he was an engineer. It's not just because he's an engineer. I didn't know that being able to talk was a gift because teachers always got mad at me for it. So I thought it was a bad thing. Turns out it's not. MSA is a metropolitan statistical area. So like a big like DFW or Atlanta could be an MSA. Like if that is what they call the Atlanta MSA, right? So it's I was just making sure. But most of your big cities, they'll just call it the big city MSA.
Yeah, no, great information here. Ash is asking if we can connect virtually. As mentioned before, I'll share out that list of contacts from this. If you want to drop your information in the chat, feel free to do so. For those who are looking for syndicators, right? Angel is one, right? So you may want to reach out and get her contact information as well. I'm grateful for everyone who's been here joining us today at this 11 o'clock session. Angel, thank you for everything that you dropped. We really appreciate that, and your ability to pimp your husband out. That I don't know if y'all saw how I was laughing when she said that, but you just made me think. My wife might be pimping me out. You know what I mean? I think I'm getting pimped out right now when it comes. She's like, yeah, go do that multifamily stuff, Jason. But anyways,
it was an awesome way to get him some underwriting skills and for him to get real life deals to check out.
Definitely. But love what you shared about being diligent, having the confidence in yourself, putting up the money to get the deal done, and then seeing that energy change that allows you to raise an additional 750,000, where before you'd only raise like 250 grand, but you were able to surround yourself with a team. So I think that the tenacity that you had for being able to stick with that deal, scratch, crawl, fight, whatever, and find the right connections was really powerful. So appreciate that. Appreciate everybody else who joined with us today. Make it a great day on purpose. I'll see you here next Tuesday. All right. Take care.